Real original. Real original. Yeah. This is real original. Real original. Sign, seal, real original.
What's going on, guys? Michael Sutton with the Real Original Podcast. Today, I've got a really special guest, Phil Jones, Phil M. Jones. Good to see you, buddy.
So good to be here.
Mr. Magic Words himself. So we're here at the Keller Williams Luxury Symposium at the Hotel Del Coronado in sunny San Diego, California, my hometown. So glad to have you here with us.
It's a joy to be here. I'm enjoying the sunshine. I'm enjoying the people, enjoying the energy, and now I get to enjoy a conversation with you.
Yeah, which is it's so funny that we're here because I don't know if I've told you this or not. You know, we met at a Keller Williams event. You were a keynote speaker. Then I signed up after that event for your mastermind. And we met there. Yeah. We had a lovely time. I don't recommend for anyone. And then I realized at some point, I had bought your book, Exactly What to Say, in an airport. I'm hungry for sales knowledge. And I started reading it. I was like, who is this guy to tell me that these words are going to do anything? And I put it away until after that Keller Williams event, and I saw you demonstrate such a mastery in your craft, and it really, to me, gave me a whole different level of respect. And I actually got the book out, bought some for my team, and then now I recommend it to everybody.
Isn't that interesting?
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So, your book, Exactly What to Say, when did you write that book?
I struggle with answering this question because the technical answer is that book was published in 2017. It's also the rewrite of a book that I wrote in 2012. It's a rewrite of a book called Magic Words. And Magic Words is the rewrite of a 2-page PDF that I produced for a training course in 2009. And the methodology in Exactly What to Say is something I've lived with for over 15 years. So when did you write the book? I actually wrote it in a weekend in 2016. Which was me taking the body of work up until now, running it through an audio transcription. So I spoke the book first, and then I spent a ton of time editing it through as many different lenses as I possibly could. So through a leadership lens, through a sales lens, through a real estate lens, through a parenting lens, through a family dynamic lens. And I love that if you could write for everybody, but then edit for as many different groups of people as possible, that you could create something that was truly universal. And we've now operated Exactly What to Say methodology into over 800 different sectors or industries or user groups, and learned a lot through that journey since the book's been published. But I wrote it, during my life.
One thing that I really love about you, Phil, is most people will just start something, go on to something new.
Sure.
Start something, go on to something new. Start something, go on to something new.
Yep.
But what it seems like you've done is you have continued to work on this body of work for a lifetime, and it's seen different iterations as this
100%.
First version, then Exactly What to Say, and then you've got Exactly What to Say for real estate agents, photographers, all of these different versions. And what I love is you take these things that universally work and then tailor them, and then at the same time, just continue to deepen your understanding and mastery of the work. Because it sounds really simple when I read the book. And then when I went to the mastermind and we spent a couple days with you, watching you just go through and navigate conversations and sales scenarios and all kinds of different things, it was such a level of mastery. I mean, I had smoke. And then the weekend, I was so surprised because you call them magic words in the book, right? Or these phrases that you'll have to read the book to find out what those are. But they're not just things that you can just say and cast a spell. So what are, for anyone that's listening, magic words, and how are they used? Just in a quick.
If I'm going to give the elevator pitch version is magic words are words that talk straight to the subconscious brain. They allow people to make decisions more quickly. They remove friction from conversation. So instead of getting stuck in the maybe position, which I think is where many of our conversations get stuck, right? They're not in somebody as a heck yes or a hell no. They're in this perhaps, possibly, maybe kind of area of decision making. If you can talk to the part of somebody's brain that is fundamentally more decisive, you can increase the rate of decision, increase the rate of action. And in the sales environment, that means you can increase the rate of transaction. And that's what they are in an elevator pitch point of view. But if I let you into a secret, the book, Exactly What to Say, is positioned as 23 sequences of magic words. It's not really. It's 23 principles of influence and persuasion disguised as magic words. Because what I've learned to be true is that if you try to teach people principles, they really struggle to find application and struggle to find examples. Yet if you can give people examples, they trip over principles. And then those principles get learned and lived in their life, and it creates new muscle memory. And as a trainer at heart, more than anything else, is I look to try and find ways that you can transfer, elevate, or improve skill in the shortest period of time. How do you create the biggest impact with the smallest amount of effort? And sometimes, like the way you get children to eat vegetables is to put something sweet on it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's really the positioning around Exactly What to Say in magic words to get people to start to be able to feel confident trying on new things. So when people think that these are quote-unquote magic words, it gives them confidence to say, I'm going to try these, and then they get practical application.
Oh, that's very cool.
So there's almost like a meta thing in there.
Yeah. You get very meta, and that's the thing. Like, when I was sitting in the mastermind, I remember being like, the M in Phil M. Jones, it's probably meta. Because you go really deep, and one thing that you also touched on in that mastermind, and I was hoping to ask you about, is you talked about question trees.
Correct.
What is a question tree?
Well, a question tree is a series of questions that are stacked on each other with a intended purpose or outcome. If I'm to put a metaphor to it, is most people try to use questions like a checkers player uses a checkers piece in a checkers game. Is if you can use questions with more intent, you can play chess in conversation when everybody else is playing checkers. You can actually see 5, 7, 9 moves ahead, and you can build towards that guaranteed outcome. I'll give a real simple example that applies to about every human being on the universe. And we're going to tackle something relatively big right now. What we're going to tackle is probably the most difficult conversation that shows up in every household on the planet.
Where do you want to go get dinner?
What's for dinner? Yeah. What's for dinner? Like, what's for dinner is the hardest conversation in the world because it ends up in like, I don't know, what do you want? And you're like, well, I don't know. I mean, what do you want? And then somebody says like what they want, and the other person says not that, and then they say, well, you decide then, and they say I can't. Like, I'm into anything, and you say, well, how about this then? And they say, well, not that either. So you say it's not anything, and before we know it, right, we're getting into some form of dispute, and it's because people don't know how to use question trees. Look what would happen if you could build a questioning arc that made that decision making around what's for dinner easier. What if you asked a historic question like, well, what did you have for lunch today?
Today I had an ancient grains bowl.
Right? Ancient grains bowl. So how hungry are you?
Not very hungry.
Okay. In terms of food for tonight, do you want to eat in or do you want to go out?
I think being out was nice. We're in Coronado.
Okay. So is there anywhere that's in the locality that you've been meaning to go?
You know, I think I'd go anywhere where we could sit by the beach.
Okay, so anywhere on the beach. And you want to be full or you want to be perhaps a touch more casual?
Touch more casual.
Okay. And you want to eat on the early side or later?
Maybe on the early side.
Okay. And would you be opposed to sushi?
I love sushi. It sounds great.
Right? You see how quick we got to the point we needed to get to in just a handful of questions without any friction of being able to get there because it felt like it was collaborative and that this was co-created. Therefore, there was no pressure on either side. All we're looking to be able to do is to lead the dance. And a well-positioned question tree helps overcome the puzzle that everybody says they don't like to dance, but most people actually quite like to dance when somebody else leads them on the dance floor. It can help them not feel stupid in the process. So effective question trees lead people to smarter and simpler decisions.
Yeah. So the question tree, what it sounds like is it's just a sequence of questions to help us navigate to get to a desired decision.
Correct. And we make this even simpler have you ever seen like what people can do with Lego sets nowadays?
I have.
Like I got delivered this Lego set as a gift and I like Land Rovers. I got a Land Rover Defender back in the UK. A friend got me a gift of the Land Rover Defender Lego set and I was enamored. Like, this is an incredibly beautiful gift. And then I'm like, when on earth am I going to build that? but dang, I want that picture in the real thing. I want that in a shelf in my office, but that looks like a lot of work. It looks like a lot of work. And it is a lot of work. If I took all the components out, poured them out across this table here right now, we'd be like, how? That looks impossible. Yeah, when it's mapped out one step at a time, when the big Lego set is broken down into you do step 1, step 2, step 3, all the way through to step 517, you end up going from a pile of bricks to a sexy Lego Defender. And that's what question trees do in complex conversations. They turn the big decision into a series of smaller ones that means that, oh, we did it. There's this like surprise, oh, that makes sense. And there isn't an argument to be had in between.
And it's really not that hard to stop, be intentional about what we're asking. But I think the tendency is just to go, not think, and try to think what we're going to say right the moment we're going to say it.
Right. Or rush to the answer. And when you rush to the answer, if the other person isn't on the same beat of the same song, then what happens is they feel like they're being caught off guard. They feel like they're being manipulated. They feel like they're being pushed in a direction that they don't necessarily want to go in. Or they're not 100% in agreement with the direction you're looking to travel.
Yeah.
They might be 97% in agreement, but the 3% they're not in agreement about now is getting all the attention. Slow the process down, you'll speed the outcome up.
Love that. So anyone that follows me or that listens knows I love quotes. I post a quote pretty much every day on my Instagram. And one of the quotes from you that I love is, change your words, change your world.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just one letter.
Just one character different.
That makes a huge difference. So is this a quote original to you? And what does it mean to you?
I don't know if I'm sure. And I'm actually pretty sure that every quote that is attributed to somebody, they were probably not the person that was the first person to say it. Like that, I believe.
We could agree on that.
Yeah, it's almost certainly whoever is accredited a quote is
Bible said nothing under the sun is new, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah. So I think I'm somebody who's put a lot of effort into making that phrase, that statement mean more, carry further, and have more impact. That I believe is true. The question you asked about it was,
what does it mean to you? Why are words so significant to you? Like what? Because your, if I can call it your life's work,
yeah,
is helping people be more effective with language and help it kind of salespeople not be salesy.
Yeah,
right. And it seems you're passionate about language and passionate about lists, right? So where does this come from, and what inspires you to work in this world and with language and with words?
This is my life's work, and the answer to that question is multifaceted. The easy answer is that I believe it is the answer to every question. Is whatever puzzle, challenge, obstacle anybody is dealing with in their life, if they knew exactly what to say, if they could reach for the right words in that moment, if they had the ability to be able to converse at a higher level, they could almost certainly fix every problem in their life. I do not believe there is a problem or challenge in this world that cannot be solved or at least significantly helped if you just knew exactly what to say. So there's that level of belief and conviction that comes through as to why this matters. The reason I love the change your words, change your world statement is because I think it makes people think. It slows them down. It is one just changing character. It is almost the exact same sentence. However, it's like, whoa. So, if people hear it right, it should make them think, slow them down, understand how much more intentional we could perhaps need to be with our word choices. And I believe that every word that leaves your mouth, leaves your pen, leaves your keyboard, leaves your thumb strokes from your phone is either helping or hurting. Nothing is neutral. And if it was neutral, it was probably a waste. It was unnecessary. That doesn't mean I get my words right all the time. It means that I believe that if we gave more intentionality to the words that we reach for, in the moments that matter most, we could make more of those moments. And no pressure, podcast host.
Well, you're obviously a very thoughtful person.
Thank you.
And all of your work is very well thought out. And I'm sure it's taken you a lifetime of not only thinking and pondering and experience and testing it out, but it seems like, would it be fair to say you are someone who's introspective and you like to sit in thought?
I like to sit in thought, stand in thought, walk in thought, bathe in thought, shower in thought, run in thought. I'm obnoxious at thinking.
You're a great thinker too, and I love the way you think, and I love even just downstairs when we were talking with that agent, how you were encouraging everyone to play You're Exactly What to Say game.
Yeah.
And using it not as a game, you intentionally did not put rules in it because you want it more to be something that provokes thought, something that you can use to help develop the skill and learn the work and incorporate it into whatever you do.
Yep.
Right. Or the player of the game does.
Yep.
And I just think that's so cool because I think as a society, we're so trained to color in the lines.
Yep.
And you're like, why? And so I love that. I love the way you think. I admire the way you think. And I'm curious, when do you like to, when you're not thinking about words and work, what do you like to think about, or what fascinates you outside of your work?
Oh, what fascinates me outside of my work? I'm fascinated by people in general. Just what makes people tick, what makes people think, what makes the world go round, why certain things are certain ways. I'm obnoxiously curious in everything. And the only way that I can survive that is a great piece of advice I got from an early mentor that said it's okay to compare yourself to others as long as you compare the whole of you with the whole of them.
I like that.
Which is almost impossible to do, but when you give it some thought, it allows you to actually peel back 3 to 5, 7 more layers. So you could look at somebody uber successful and be like, why am I not more like them? Like, let's take something super simple and say, well, you know, why is your podcast show not as successful as the Joe Rogan show? I mean, like, you're a charismatic interviewer, you run a long form interview, boom, 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 boom. Like, why does one like hit the #1 spot and get gazillions of downloads, and that yours is on a different area of trajectory at this period of time? And then it starts to become pretty easy to answer that question. Well, why not? There was a different point in time when it was started. Why not? Some of the topics and the tech characters, why not? Like, there's actually 1,000 very valid reasons to why not. And then you're like, well, okay, I'm at peace with that. Then you can take the pieces that you might want to learn from and then add to. And what ends up happening is you realize that you can make new worlds within the world that you live in where 2 + 2 = 5. That's what can start to happen when you think more multidimensional. You can find a 4th dimension. You can find multiplying factors to everything that says, well, hold on, winning doesn't have to be at somebody else's expense. Better doesn't need to be because you took from somebody else. An improvement doesn't need to be at somebody else's consequence. And that's what I spend my time thinking about, is like, how do we create environments where people win at higher levels without there needing to be a loser and without there needing to be a participation trophy either?
So not ending up with a zero-sum game.
Correct.
But finding a situation, like you mentioned, a dance.
Yes.
Right? The negotiation being more of a dance than a fight.
Correct. And it can end up where, I mean, take the home buying process for one. Is like, when done right, every agent comes out on top. The person selling the house comes out on top. The person buying the house comes out on top. And every vendor involved in the transaction said that this was awesome.
Yeah. Well, Keller Williams actually has a value set called the Y4C2Ts. Are you familiar with that?
It's just so effortlessly rolls off your tongue, right? Don't we love a good acronym?
Love a good one. But the W in it's phonetic is for win-win or no deal. Right. And so I really believe that, and we're very aligned on that.
Yeah.
That's why I've always been so drawn to your work. I think you're absolutely right, and I think the idea of a winner and a loser to me is egoic.
Yeah.
And unless we're playing sports, it doesn't really need.
Well, but also, even win-win or no deal is still only considering a singular moment in time with 2 players in the game. Why can't it be win, and that's what makes a great deal? And I'm not trying to go against win-win or no deal, right? Like, I think there's a lot of like clarity in that, and I think there's a lot of purity in it. But for the purpose of today's discussion, you're asking, what do I think about? How do you create even more winners? How can you create even further amplified stakeholders? How can you help people see around blind corners so that they can achieve more in their world? How do you help people be able to understand that their potential is greater than what they can see for themselves? How do you look to bring other people for the ride so that what can happen is that there's an amplifying experience? How do you find ways of being able to, add substance to what it is you're doing? Like, even as simple as, once you go past the finish line, if you were even just thinking about supporting a client and selling a home, who else should be shadowing some of those phone calls that isn't? Who else could benefit from being a ride-along at certain stages in the process? If you're using a video crew to be able to make a home look beautiful, who's the other person that should be seeing that from behind the scenes that is gaining experience that would help them at a later point in their life? Is there a junior in your world that could do with resume points that at some point in their time, this will help them to be able to have had a frontline experience that means that they might get a job when they're 16 that they wouldn't have got without being able to say, there was this one time that I shadowed this real estate professional that, right? You can start realizing that there are so many amplifying actions that you can take towards other actions you're already committed to do, where this much more thoughtful thought can create an accelerating outcome for others that is way beyond anybody else would care about.
Just the way that you think about creating wins in these ways that are seemingly small, like allowing someone to shadow someone,
right,
or just giving more opportunity, to me is very inspiring to get me to think, how can I create more winners in every little situation in my life? Another thing that I remember one time in the mastermind, we had talked about, or somehow you had talked about, when you enter a room, that first second.
Yep.
What energy are you bringing in?
Yep.
How are you showing up?
Right.
And when you show up home after a trip with your family.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, wow, when I come home, I'm not like, the dog comes up, my girlfriend's there, and I'm like, get away from me. I need to de-stress. But how much I've tried to be better at that now, and how much of a difference it makes.
Yeah.
I just think it's so cool. And so how do you find the presence and calm with such a busy schedule to be able to stop and take those moments to think and be intentional with your time?
Firstly, note that I don't get it right all the time. I think sometimes there's a belief that because somebody has an expertise in something, or because they are, publicly paraded as being an expert or holding mastery at something, that it means that they chip in the hole from 140 yards every single time, right? It doesn't mean that's what happens, right? And you give some space for the grace of the fact that it doesn't always go perfectly, but giving yourself space around the space is one of the ways that you can show it with more intention. And that can be as simple as, if you take stepping into the house, you don't go from the Uber to the house without catching a beat first. You understand that you go from fourth gear to neutral to parking brake to opening front door, right? You've got some wind down transition to say, well, hold on, my character is changing. And that character can change with other notable ticks. It could be as simple as saying that, like an example for me always used to be that if I had a suit jacket on, that was Phil M. Jones. But if I took my jacket off and I didn't have a pocket square, I'm just Phil.
Well, I'm really honored that you're here as Phil, because I saw a rep.
Yeah, I threw a jacket. That's because I'm in California and it's warm.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's warm, and I'm here on the couch, and no one wants to sit in a suit jacket on the couch.
It's just we're buddies.
That's what it is.
That's why I think it is.
But the lesson for people, I think, if you're trying to be more intentional in the moment, and you're aware that you are blasting from one thing to the next, and there's any form of busyness, is add to your schedule the beats. So that could be as simple as running 55-minute meetings as opposed to 60-minute meetings, so that what you've got is 5 minutes to get ready for the next meeting. That could be as simple as saying that when you land at an airport and you're traveling from the airport to being back home again in a car service, that you build a habit to yourself that says, I don't pour myself into emails in that moment in time. I listen to some music, or I start the next meeting, which is the meeting stepping home with my wife. Like that's the conversation that I'm now starting. Is I'm not trying to cram through emails on my phone while I'm in the car. I'm starting the text message dialogue towards how do we have a better evening. It's like that transition is actually putting in the work before the work to be ready for the moment that exists. And if you think about job interviews, and you go back in time to you, like, going for your first job. How much thoughtful thought did you put into how you're going to show up for that interview?
I probably put on a shirt and a tie and printed a resume and wrote a resume and gave it some thought.
Some thought to how you might answer some questions, some thought to what questions they might ask of you, gave some considerations to play with all the what-ifs that they might ask of you. You ran some play-by-plays in your head ahead of time, and you did that for something that was going to reward you that if you crushed it, like $12 an hour.
Oh, no, it's like $9 an hour.
Right.
Trashing it back then.
Right. But whatever it might have been is that many of us gave more thoughtful thought to the job interviews we had in our youth that would reward us with $9 an hour, $12 an hour, than what we do with the moments that could have the biggest impact towards who we are as people. We don't do anywhere near that level of prep than what we did for this supposed high-stakes moment in the past.
That resonates with me as being so true and so sad, tragic.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that is?
We live in a world that is hyper-focused on consumption. And that's the amount that we can consume, but it also then juxtaposes to us viewing success is how much output we can put. Like, if on one side of things we are measured with how much input we can consume, the reverse of which is people see themselves as being more valuable if they can produce more, push more out into the world, get more done with less.
Then I get more compliments, more praise, more money.
Correct.
More attaboy.
Correct. If I can get, I mean, we're connected via our sort of overlap into the real estate world is how many people are told that winning is make more calls, make more touch points, get more mailers out, create more content.
That's what they teach, right? And that's why I've always been so drawn to your work, is because it's so much more aligned with how I've run a business. And also, it's nice to not feel insane, because I feel like in real estate, in the industry, unfortunately, there's a lot of thing, right? And sometimes not falling into that, people look at you or they're like, what do you mean you're not making your contacts? You're not doing this, you're not doing that. And it's like, well, isn't the point of a contact to have a conversation so you can set an appointment and then meet and sign the client?
It drives me insane. And people think that more is better, more is better, more is better, more is better, more is better. But you look at any other area of your life, better is better than more. Like, everything that's awesome in your life, you actually don't want more of it. You just want better quality of it.
Yeah.
You don't want more time with the people you care about. You want better quality time with the people you care about. You don't want more great food. You just want better standards of food. You don't want more choice on what you see with your eyeballs when you go on a walk. You want to have a better standard of your views and vistas of what you see when you go out on your walk.
Yeah, and that just goes with the whole idea of quality over quantity.
Yeah.
Right? And it's so true. And we hear that and we go, yeah, of course. But we don't live our lives that way.
No.
How do you come up with your ideas? Because they're really thoughtful, and they're really... What's interesting to me about the way you think in your ideas is they seem like, yeah, that's obvious, and it's right in front of us, but there's some kind of layer or block.
Mm-hmm.
Is that just how you think? Is that just how you are? Or do you think, is there a process, like a scientific kind of like a process that you use to break down an idea?
Okay, so here's the problem. Most of us don't think enough. So it isn't that I have a unique level of thinking, it's I just do more thinking than the majority of people, and I do that intentionally to be better thinking. And how do you do more better thinking is where you put yourself in the arenas with other people that ask you questions you haven't yet prepared to ask yourself. One of those is right here, right now. You're putting yourself in a situation where a smart person is going to ask you questions about how you do what you do, what could be done differently, your worldview, etc. It helps you sharpen your own thinking on what you actually think about those things, because you don't get to be able to think about that enough by yourself.
So having more conversations with smart, inquisitive people.
Yeah, and also pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. I know it's cliche. It's putting yourself into arenas and environments that you haven't been in before, where you're truly looking to be able to test yourself. I don't know when it ever got presented as this, but there seems to be a point, particularly here in North America, where people believe they're supposed to know what they're doing, and therefore they're very fearful. And it could be like, you got a high school graduation, so therefore now you're ready, or you left college, therefore you've now got all the tools that you need to be able to win at life, or you've been an entrepreneur for a decade and you were successful with your last company and you sold it for a big multiple, so therefore you're the guru on all things to do with that. And there becomes this expectation that you're supposed to know what you're doing. And what I've learned to be true from now working in, 60 different countries, 5 different continents, 800 different industries, is I've learned that nobody knows what they're doing. 0 people know what they're doing. Yet the ones that are best regarded are the ones that have garnered more experience. And that experience has come from putting themselves in situations that other people would shy from, putting themselves in experiences that test and stretch them in slightly different ways. That means that what happens is their thinking and their worldview is expanded because there are more threads running into it. There are more scenarios that they're giving consideration to. And what it allows a greater level of empathy. Because what you've got is the consideration of more stakeholders. The majority of people can't see past the stakeholder of this one, and maybe the other person that's right in front of them, and the other handful of people that they hang out with that are in the same silo of belief system. That's their worldview. So the reason that I think some other people supposedly think differently is because they have a greater worldview, because they have more to think about, quite literally. There are more vantage points to give consideration against.
One word that you slipped in there was empathy.
Yes.
And I've heard you say, and quote a friend of yours, I think it was John Acuff.
John Acuff, yeah.
He said, empathy is caring about what the people you care about care about.
That's right.
What do you care about?
What do I care? I care about a lot of things, and I think it depends in the moment. We can jump to all the lazy answers to these questions, like I care about my family, and I care about my health, and I care about the results that we can achieve for others, and I care about what people think about me, and anybody who says that they don't is lying. We all care about what people think about us, which is why a notification on the phone can capture your attention in a single moment, because that's definitely about you. What do I care about? I care about being on the relentless quest for better. I believe that none of us are ever done. And I care about other people very deeply. And I don't have to know somebody intimately to care about them intimately. I care about helping people struggle less and achieve more. And I think there are a lot of people who are struggling with many things they have no need to struggle with if they could find clarity around them. In today's world, I believe that as humans, we're freaking horrible. Mostly we're horrible to ourselves. And some of that is because we don't know how to talk to ourselves. And there isn't a lot of space to be able to show up and talk about that. And I think sometimes this thing gets pushed out from a mental health point of view to, you need to speak to a therapist, you need to be able to get the right pills, you got to get the medication, etc., etc. And none of those things I'm against. But the root cause is that many people are not equipped to have meaningful conversations with themselves.
And then that leads to lack of meaningful conversations with other people, which leads to a lack of meaningful connection, lack of meaningful experiences, which in a lot of ways, right, I agree with you. There are probably people, I think we're overprescribed in this country, but there's people that need it. But I think meaningful connection,
all of these
can lead to such great things and can take away a lot of the, I guess,
it's more more brutal than that. Is the challenge that many of us have is that we do not know how to regulate our own nervous system. And the reason a toddler is having a tantrum is very rarely because they are choosing to be badly behaved. The reason they're having a meltdown, the reason they're pushing back, etc., is that they don't have the ability to be able to articulate their circumstances. They don't have the ability to be able to explain what it is they're feeling. They don't even understand what it is they're feeling, so the only way they can express this is with some significant meltdown.
And then they grow up and get into politics, and then you experience it again.
But what they were often looking for in a moment like that was not to be told to stop crying, not to be told to, to quiet down, not to be told like nothing happened, not to be told everything's going to be okay, not to be told go sit in your room, not to be told any version of the fact that we're misbehaving. They may have just wanted somebody to hold enough space for them to let them know they're okay to feel what it is that they're feeling right now, and to give them either the space or the support to express what they were trying to express in an environment that gave them confidence to do that slightly faster next time, slightly simpler next time. Because that's simply regulating your nervous system. Many of those toddlers are living today as 25, 35, 55, 75-year-old adults and still have the same inability to regulate their nervous system, which is why they reach for drugs and alcohol or partying, or the only way that they can get senses of feel good is because of public praise or applause or some form of like instant shot of dopamine, or like they have to fight for their significance in some ways. But this all comes back to your ability to be able to talk to yourself. Nothing's as good as it is, nothing's as bad as it is, everywhere somewhere in between. And if you can't ask yourself questions and give honest answers, that's a real tough place to be. So what do I really care about? I really care about helping people raise their consciousness towards the ability to be okay not being okay. And that's fine. That's normal. We are all going to live the bulk of our life not being as okay as we'd like. But if we're okay not being okay, then guess what we are? Okay. Right. Yeah. So like that.
The paradox of being okay.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And I think it's all conversations with ourselves. And we didn't talk about this in the workshop because more often than not, people are looking for practical, tactical, commercial success stories of what can be coming with word choices. But if you took the full curriculum of exactly what to say and applied it to a puzzle you were having in your own life and simply run that series of questions through your current situation, you'd probably find clarity on what it is that you should do next without having to spiral, melt down, get into panic, move into blame, excuse, denial. You could probably figure it out all by yourself and build yourself a roadmap of where to go from there. If you can do that, you're in a pretty decent spot.
One thing that we always touch on Real Original is authenticity.
Okay.
I've had the privilege of getting together with you on multiple occasions, and even just sitting here, I felt like you were really speaking from the heart.
Mm-hmm.
The room kind of got clearer, and everything kind of focused, and I felt like you were really being authentic there. And I felt that in other conversations we had, one thing that surprised me about you is when we went to your event, because you're this published author and this character, you're very accessible and there and just a real human being, which is really refreshing and cool.
Thank you.
What does authenticity mean to you, or being authentic?
I think what it means is that when you scratch it, it's still the same underneath, right? If this was a gold coin, you'd want to not find out it was gold plated.
Yeah.
So, that's what being authentic means. I think authenticity is also a massively confused and overused word.
I would agree with you there too.
Because some people are using the word like, oh, he or she was just being authentic as an excuse for them being an arsehole, right?
I haven't encountered that one yet, but I'm sure it's up there.
Somebody just speaking their mind, somebody that went off in a fit of rage, somebody who said something mean about someone else. They were just being authentic. And I think it's been buzzworded out to a point that it's made it okay for people to not be kind in certain circumstances. I think there's also a realization around authenticity that is like, just be your authentic self. And therefore, the question I ask back of that is like, which self are you asking me to be authentic at this moment in time? Because we're all multiple versions of self. I'm looking around the room that we're here, and we got, a brilliant, talented camera crew here. They are authentically showing up professionally to be ready to capture great video and great audio, etc. But whilst they're authentic here in their role of being professional camera operator, they're also authentically disrespecting another relationship that could be existing in their life. They're authentically ignoring a potential puzzle or problem that could do with some attention that they really should be giving more attention to at this moment in time. So it isn't this catch-all bucket of just be authentic. It's which version of self are you showing up for at this moment in time? How are you authentically being that role? And I kind of view it as that we're all diamonds, and that what we have to do is to show one of the authentic facets at any given point. But we got to keep all the facets shiny and know that we've got to show the right facet of the right diamond in the right circumstance in the right way for you to be able to achieve more brilliance. Because authenticity is just being yourself, but it's which self?
And I think to go back to something that we touched on, you talked about being able to talk to yourself and be okay, being not okay, and really being present, sitting with emotions. I think authenticity and the way that I understand it or interpret it is like that. It's, what do I really want on a core level, like on a soul level, that raises my vibration, that makes me want to be more giving, loving, more caring, and be the best version of myself out here. And what's aligned with that vision?
Okay.
And so, and not what do I want that's going to make like them think I'm cool or like raise my status or that kind of thing, right? Or anything really from the ego. And then being true to that and pursuing that, because I know for me in my life, I've had instances where I was doing things for the wrong reason. Yeah. You know, especially being, you know, coming up in a real estate, and then, you know, my other business is in financial technology, fintech. And, you know, so the two industries that I'm working in, real estate, finance, I mean, there's a lot of egos, a lot of characters, a lot of stuff, right? And a lot of people that I interpret doing things, not necessarily for the wrong reasons, but just reasons that I'm no longer interested in.
Yeah, but isn't that them potentially being authentic?
I think, I see where you're going with that, and I could see that, but I think when someone is authentically insecure,
right,
and they're doing something out of insecurity, it's like one could say, yes, they're authentically insecure and acting out of insecurity. But when I say it, I mean, like at Phil's best note, like if you're a note, a key on a piano, we hit the note that's Phil's core. Yeah. So whatever Dad Phil, Phil, whatever Phil,
what shows up everywhere?
What shows up everywhere. When I read that note and I hit that key, is it the same? Okay. Right. So it's not like all the little nuance, but that kind of like, is this aligned with really your mission? Yeah. And really, are you having to jeopardize and I'm not saying not make sacrifices. We make sacrifices and have to, you know, have meetings.
I think we're talking about some core beliefs here as well, right? That's what we're saying. Is like what are core beliefs that are true that show up everywhere? Is like you cannot find an area of your life where that core belief is not present. Yeah. And one of those things for me is that everything is figure-outable. Like it is, and if everything is figure-outable, there are no problems because everything is figure-outable. Like we can figure it out. And that'll show up in how I speak to my kids. That'll show up in how I'll deal with a dispute with a family member or my wife. That'll show up in like what we're trying to achieve for growth inside the business. That'll show up inside a client issue at the board table. That'll show up when somebody is complaining about a client in a real estate transaction and looking to be able to find a way forward with it. Is everything is figure-outable. And that core belief is remarkably helpful. And what I try to build is helpful beliefs. Not necessarily accurate beliefs, helpful beliefs. Because so many people focus on like what's right and what's wrong, and that they end up being right and don't get the right result. I would much rather focus on authentically building a set of beliefs that are helpful to me on a day-to-day basis. And if you believe that everything is figure-outable, well, life's a little more free.
So authenticity, we could say, would be being aligned with your core values.
Yes.
Or allowing your core values to show up.
Core values, core beliefs. Yes.
I like that.
Yeah.
So you do a great job of taking this abstraction and diving into this thing. I appreciate that about
Thank you. Thank you.
So one other thing that I just thought was cool too to touch on, and you just being a real person, because your book, I mean, not to how many copies of Exactly What to Say have been sold roughly?
Approaching 3 million.
Approaching 3 million. So it's a lot of books.
Just a lot of ink on paper.
And so this idea that at least I had, I don't want to put it out on the world. It's like, this published author, British guy with a nice accent, very articulate. It's gonna have this blazer with the elbow pads and leather bound.
Oh man, I wish.
And the examples in the mastermind you were looking where you were talking about like pro wrestling and all these different movies that I was Fast and the Furious. I was like, this guy is just such a normal guy. Do people often have the misconception of you, or do you feel like you are kind of misunderstood or misperceived often?
I believe that all of us put barriers and boundaries around relationships with other people that didn't need to exist. We apparently don't have a class system anymore at this stage in 2024 like we used to have. We don't have slavery. We don't have upper, middle, lower classes where people are labeled out. Yet my experience is that we've created these classes and these boundaries and these barriers ourselves. Many people have enslaved themselves in modern society and feel that they are less than. I believe that people feel that because somebody has a version of success attached to them, that they are viewed as a higher standard of human, or that like that's upper class in this environment. It's like, I cannot possibly speak to that person. Just like if we were to go back, 100 years, that people felt that there was a barrier or a boundary between the ability to be able to communicate with that person. And I think these are all self-imposed boundaries. And I'm saying this as a middle-aged white guy. So that's my perspective. But these boundaries are mostly created inside the minds of people themselves.
And this idea kind of, it's aligned with the previous statement you made about being able to talk to yourself.
Yes.
If you're having a self-imposed boundary.
Yeah.
You're telling yourself, oh, I can't talk to this person. Oh, I don't belong here.
And I think that goes both ways as well, right? Is I've been in rooms with some insanely quote unquote successful people, if we're using monetary wealth as the measure of success. And I've been in rooms and with some insanely famous people, if what we're using is fame as some form of measure of success. And in both those scenarios, I've seen examples of that show up where those people are remarkably accessible. They over-index in a way that allows people to realize that they're just humans too. And I've seen examples of this that have indexed in the other direction, where somebody has tried to use that point to be able to build that wall further to create a heightened level of protection for themselves. And I think if people are okay with their true self, then on either side of that line, that boundary doesn't need to exist. I think that what people can do is realize that we're all people, and wherever anybody is, we're all in a similar journey. We're just at different points in that journey. And as successful as you might be at this given moment in time, who knows where you're going to be in 18 months? And it's also highly probable that if you're remarkably successful in one area, you're also remarkably unsuccessful in another area. And there's probably something that everybody you meet can teach you about some of those areas of your life that could be bolstered, improved, or at least learned from if you're humble enough to not think that you're hot shit. And the times that you can, in my mind, believe that you're hot shit is when you are given the permission to be able to do that, right? You want your star quarterback to feel like he or she is hot shit when they're on the field of play.
Definitely.
But you don't necessarily need them to feel like they are that level of superhero when they're in the kitchen making breakfast.
Yeah.
Or when they're at the grocery store buying groceries. But you might need them to access that version of themselves when they're at the kids' school, helping other people realize that they could achieve more of themselves and they could live out their dream. So it's realizing, like, when is that character of yourself in service of either a moment or in service of other people intentionally, then you lean into the fact that actually you're a poster child at this moment. You're a poster of possibility for others. Like, your fame, your wealth, your anything at that point in time is nothing to do with you. It's all about helping somebody else tell a better story about themselves in that given moment. Then you worry less about access. You realize, like, actually, what point am I making? And it's back to the point I made earlier on. Like, if you can lift yourself outside of yourself and talk to yourself and look at a situation in a 4D fashion, you're going to make very different decisions.
Totally. So on that kind of, I really like that analogy of the quarterback being hot shit. And then in my mind, I'm just imagining them getting outside, getting in their, Ferrari and speeding off, still being hot shit, and
right,
getting in legal trouble, as a lot of, athletes will.
Right. Because they think that persona translates into every other area of their life. And that's what you have to get wrong. And
just being authentic.
Exactly. They're just turbocharged. Yeah.
So for you, seems like you've got a good perspective on this, and the acknowledgement that you're not perfect. Being as persuasive as you can be, I imagine it's hard. You take off the blazer, you go from Phil and Jones to Phil Jones, and you're at home with your family.
Yep.
It's probably impossible to completely turn it on.
Yep.
Fair to say?
100%.
So what I'm curious to know is, have your wife and kids, they must have picked up on this and been able to be able to kind of use some of these techniques by now? Or are they just kind of like, are they ever like, hey, Dad, just stop, because I'm just not going to do that?
Well, I shared a belief that I have, which is everything is figure outable, and how that is a helpful belief. It is not always a helpful belief. There are times where what somebody wants is not for you to think about how this is figure outable. There are times where somebody wants you to be mad at the thing that they're mad at too, and be pissed at the person that they're... And those are the times where I repeatedly get it wrong. What somebody needed from me was commiseration and a shoulder to cry on, and to hate the thing they hated as much as they hated. And yet my inside voice is everything's figure outable. Let's see what we can do to be able to make a plan. Like, there's so much more of this is in your control, etc. But what they were really looking for, and we're like, no, she is and she shouldn't have, and that shouldn't have happened, and that is a bad thing. Like, they wanted me to get on the bandwagon.
Just being a dude, right?
I don't know. I think we all have it, regardless of sex, race, etc. Is that we all have moments that we wish or could have more awareness to what the other person was looking for in that given moment, and we mess it up. The key on this, though, is intentionality, and realizing that when you do mess things up, what can you do differently next time? What can you do differently next time? And that's back to me being like, everything is figure outable. Is that, okay, I slipped up today. So how can I be better next time? How can we be better next time? And how much time do even all you folks listening at home on this spend thinking about trying to change yesterday? And when I position it like that, is I hope you realize how stupid it is to try to think about how do you change yesterday. But we all burn rubber on this. We burn energy, we give thought, we do play-by-plays about something that happened in our past that we are looking or wishing or hoping we could have done differently, or that somebody else could have done differently. And there is zero you can do about it right now, other than what you choose to do today, tomorrow, and the day after that. So if the thinking can go to next time as opposed to how do I fix yesterday, then again, it's another way we could change our own worlds, at least.
In your book, you talk about one of your sequences of words.
Yeah.
Is what I like to refer to, or you like to refer to, as the Columbo moment.
Yes.
So Columbo, for listeners, is an old TV show with the TV detective.
Yeah.
And Columbo does what?
Well, as well as asking very insightful questions, is when Columbo would often get to the end of an interrogation, he'd walk towards a door looking like the conversation was over. The person he was interrogating would have lowered their guard and feel like they'd expressed everything that was being expressed, and Columbo would turn back to that person, raise his index finger and say, just one more thing. And in that just one more thing moment, and the ability to be able to ask one more question, where often that one question that could be asked would provide the answer that would provide the insights that would go on to be able to solve the crime. And most of us aren't in the business of solving crimes, but we are in the business of making more of our conversations count. That's why I love so much about how we can often get one more ask, one more insight with a just one more thing moment.
And I love that moment, not only because it's so effective, but I just like how you drew it from this old TV detective. What other unusual sources of inspiration have you found or have had an influence and impact on your work?
Oh, I mean, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. I mean, our job isn't to be able to make great points. Our job is to be able to make great points that stick. And how do you make great points that stick is often you have to attach them to something that's already familiar to somebody else, and therefore it will then translate at a quicker level. I even think about a keynote that I delivered yesterday that I was inviting people to understand how terrible we are as a society asking questions, and how we're so efficient with language we fail to be effective, that at best we ask one question. And I ask people to think about the movie Shrek. See, if I ask a room full of people who in this room have seen the movie Shrek, chances are most of the people have seen the movie Shrek. I say in the movie Shrek, Shrek says ogres are like
onions.
Right? Everybody knows that. And I say why? Because they have
layers.
People be the same. So a simple example of being able to point that something we accept to be true in a made-up TV series around a virtual ogre caricature that creates this big meaningful point is that this ogre has feelings too, and that there are more layers and more dimensions to the way that is currently happening, is that you can bring that straight across to be a metaphor, is to say, well, if it's true for ogres, why is it not true for us as people? Oh, it is. What would happen if we could take a moment and peel back a handful more layers in the conversations that we're currently having with people to get to a greater version of the truth, or at least get to a greater showing of that we care? So there's one example. We're doing it everywhere. Isn't that what a comedian does, where they're forever looking for material? Like, I love just watching Jerry Seinfeld stuff, but less about Jerry Seinfeld being a comedian on stage, more of Jerry Seinfeld talking about being a comedian on stage. That stuff blows my mind.
That meta stuff again.
Yeah, and he's always working on new material. He's always looking for a bit in everything that's happening with his life. It's like, how can this show up in something that could be valuable or useful for me? And I think as a professional speaker and as somebody that is helping to create experiences for large audiences at the same time, you're relentlessly looking at ways of saying, how can I connect that message to people in a way that it sticks faster or quicker or is more memorable? So the material is everywhere.
I love that you love Seinfeld because he's one of my favorites. I love the show, and I think he's great.
I want him to do like
an observational humor. Yeah. I'm like, that's you, man. You're an observational guy.
Yeah. And how do you use what's happening to be able to help people realize what's happening in their own world?
What were you saying about him, then?
I want him to do not just comedians in cars getting coffee. I want him to do a random series of speakers. Like, that would be a utopian goal for me, is to sit in a car alongside Jerry Seinfeld and talk about life and performance, and that would be like, that's life goals.
Jerry, listen, I know you're a fan. Get Phil in a car.
That's it. Give me to drive something. I'll take you out in my Defender.
There we go. Mm-hmm. You know, I love that shit. And that's another thing too, is like, would you say he's an inspiration for you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, I've learned to be able to draw inspiration, particularly from a craft point of view, from musical performers, from certainly a good number of comedians, from opera singers, from professional dancers. And you learn that after knowing your stuff, the next level of artistry that could come in, certainly professional speaking and how you create moments in large audiences, you need to source your inspiration from everywhere, street performers, and you're forever looking at, like, how did somebody else make something happen in a way that was impactful? And if something created a wow moment, can you reverse engineer what was the DNA in what created that magic? And how can you interpret that as a way of you being able to carry something with more impact in your own world?
Yeah. while I'm sitting here listening to you and thinking about Jerry Seinfeld and comedians getting cars and coffees, I mean, I feel like it's very you too. It's like, yeah, I'm going to make a show where comedians are going to get in cool cars because that's what I like. And we're going to get coffee because that's what I like. And we're going to have conversation.
Correct.
See, that to me is authentic to Jerry Seinfeld.
Yes.
Right.
But what's beautiful about that is, like, if somebody else tried to take and copy that idea, it would suck.
Yeah, it would.
And we've seen examples, like YouTubers have tried to do their own version of it. Like, no, it's just not very good.
And authentic too.
And the reason there's magic in a show of that nature is not only the concept is great, but there is a genuine love and appreciation of the cars. There's a genuine love and appreciation of going to the kind of restaurants, diners, places, etc. that are utilized in those experiences. And there is almost always a genuine relationship between the guest and Jerry that creates a third dimension of spark that only exists because there are shared experiences that happen between those two people that are not talked about but have happened, and add a richness to the tapestry of what comes out when those two people get together.
You know, I think that word that you used, genuine, that's the best, I guess, translation of authenticity for me.
Okay.
Being genuine.
Yep.
I like that.
Yep.
And it was such a great point. For you too, what's next? Like, what's next for you? Are you going to continue? I'm sure you're going to continue working on and continuing your work that you do, and it's so impactful with exactly what to say. Do you have any other projects coming? Do you have any other things you're working on?
I think there are always going to be other projects that are being worked on, but in terms of public outward expression projects, is I look towards like heroes of building brands around IP, and one of the heroes that I'd refer to in this interview while we're looking at random areas of inspiration is Rick Astley. Now, Rick Astley wrote a tiny little song called Never Gonna Give You Up and has become a meme. Everybody knows about the Rickroll.
Everybody knows about the Rickroll.
And in some ways, the dude is seen as a joke in different areas. He's actually a remarkably talented musician, very gifted in a number of different genres, and then also happened to headline the largest music festival in the world just a couple of years back in Glastonbury in the UK, and is continuing to make impact with that one tiny little song. And I'm going to ride exactly what to say, like Rick Astley rides Never Gonna Give You Up. I'm not giving up on that either. And I think that when you get the gift of a marketplace saying we like you for that thing, fighting against that, at least outwardly from an expression point of view, is bordering on stupid. Like, you go to a John Bon Jovi concert, you're not looking for new music.
No.
In fact, if a John Bon Jovi concert said, hey, I got all new music for you, you don't actually now want to go.
Her, bro.
That's it. That's all I want. Like, give me the good stuff, give me the old stuff, give me the greatest hits. And my job now, I think, is to protect my greatest hits, to keep playing my greatest hits, keep introducing those greatest hits to new audiences, and then looking at where collabs can make old new again, looking at ways in which the message can be given to new messengers so it can reach new audiences, and then finding ways to be able to refine its relevance on a never-ending basis. And that's what I feel like I'm the custodian and the steward towards in my professional career is, can I help create more of the impact that I'm looking for with the work around exactly what to say? And much of that comes down to our 4 cornerstones, which is less about the magic words and more about people knowing that the worst time to think about the thing they're going to say is in the moment they're saying it. Can they add more intentionality to get ready for the conversation they know they're having? Also, to never forget that curiosity is the fuel to great conversation. If the conversation isn't going well, we should be getting more curious, not more certain. And even think about how that shows up to the heated debates around politics, etc. right now. What would happen if people were more curious about the other person's perspective, as opposed to so judgmental around how somebody is so wrong and you're so right? Then to remember that, people do things for their own reasons and not yours. So if you're looking to influence and persuade, you have to know enough about what the other person wants, needs, or is looking for. Otherwise, you are pushy. You're manipulative. You're not truly influencing. And for us to not lose sight of the importance of great questions. People are even missing this right now when they get overexcited about artificial intelligence. See, how do you get AI to do a good job for you? You got to give it good prompts.
And you'll probably be happy to know, or you probably already would know this. Yeah, I've played with AI and asked it to do things like, tell me this and incorporate Phil and Jones magic word.
Yeah.
It can't do it.
It can't do it, no.
No, it can't.
It does it very badly.
If at all.
Yes. Because the words aren't magic. You have to understand the principles.
Yeah.
And here's probably the best metaphor on this. It is, restaurants learn that if you could include the word truffle in a menu item, then it might raise its popularity and it might allow them to charge a little extra for it. Now, this worked good with some things. Like, we went from fries to truffle fries. Like, this is a good thing. But there are lots of things that they've then gone on to try to put truffle in that haven't quite had the same level of positive impact. And, like, you don't want a truffle milkshake.
No.
You probably don't want truffle in your burger. Maybe not. Like, it's a little debatable. Could be, couldn't be.
Not for me.
You don't necessarily want truffle in your lobster bisque. But these are all things that people are doing because we put truffle on fries and that works out. So they're showing up putting truffle in everything, thinking it's going to have the same effect because they think that truffle is the magic ingredient that allows us to be able to sell more of it for a higher fee. They think it's the magic ingredient. If the magic ingredient is not used in the right context, it actually has a sabotaging effect as opposed to an amplifying effect. That's what gets lost when people take my quote-unquote magic words and try to force them into situations. It's like going to a Las Vegas all-you-can-eat buffet, taking the entire contents of the buffet cart, sticking it in a smoothie maker and expecting it to taste good. It's probably not going to work out too well. What we're looking for people to be able to understand more is to read moments. Not to magic words, to read moments. And that's what artificial intelligence can't do. And most businesses right now are actually costing themselves more, and particularly small solopreneur businesses, where they're trying to use automation and technology to support their most important conversations. What they don't realize is how much they are bruising the potential of their success when what they're doing is they're running and trying to be able to create scale fast. And the simplest of examples is people's drip email sequences. They think, well, like, I've sent 1,500 email blasts and we drip on those people every single month. And, I got 3 leads back from it last month. So these are working awesome. I'm like, so let's get this right. There are 1,497 communications that you are sending that are irrelevant to people. What we have is boy or girl who cried wolf, right? Is because what you've done is you've landed something in my inbox repeatedly that is not valuable. If you have something valuable, I'm not listening because you've trained me that you are not a valuable resource. This is what is happening with people at scale communication, that they think they're being smarter because they can reach more people with less effort at scale, and too few people are giving any attention to the negative consequences that come from that. And when you operate in a finite marketplace, which most of us do, not an infinite marketplace, you're going to get to a point where you realize that all of your effort that you put in for growth and reach and amplification is now the reason why you're not getting what you were looking for. And most people who've tried to grow a social following fast are now dealing with those consequences, right? Where they grew from 0 to 50,000 followers with fake followers or followers out of area, or you now can't get to the people you want because you've got to get through all the people you didn't want that you put in the front of the line. So slow the process down, speed the outcome up, and give more awareness to how more intentional conversation with people that you have genuine relationship with, where you ask yourself the question is, who are they? Who are you to them? And who are they to you? And only once you know that cross-reference of relationships, are you in a position to truly communicate.
So for anyone who's listening who is an entrepreneur, or owns a business, or is building a business, or has a big business already, what is a good way to genuinely or authentically connect with their past clients, or use email as a marketing strategy. How can we use technology but also be thoughtful and use intentional language to connect and get more business?
Make it about them. Like, the mistake that people are often making is that they are offering to be helpful as opposed to being helpful. That's a very different thing.
Mm.
One of the easiest ways that you can show that you know somebody and potentially reconnect is ask them about something that you've already spoken to them about. So, for example, if we didn't have this interview discussion here today, and what I did know about you following our last interaction was that you were developing the prop tech company, and you were building out the quality of guests that you were bringing towards the podcasts, then wouldn't a meaningful outreach be, hey, how's everything going with the podcast? And where are you at with the growth of the prop tech company?
So cute.
Right? It's effortless, though, to just say, this is what we spoke about last time, bring me up to speed, without saying, hey, what's new with your life? Bring me up to speed. Because that feels lazy. Is you have to show that you know something about that person, and then ask them to expand on what you know and get them to fill in the gap from, we ended the last paragraph here, what's the start of the next chapter?
So for anyone who's really listening and heard me slip in that OFQ, it's the opening facts question.
That's right.
The technique that you teach, which you had just demonstrated.
Yep.
So just a really quick, breakdown, because you demonstrated it, but the quick breakdown, the opening fact.
Opening fact question. So a simple opening, a mutually agreeable fact, or mutually agreeable facts, and easy to answer questions. The simplest way to engage with somebody is say hi, bullet one or some items that are mutually agreeable, i.e. when they're shared, you're like, yeah, that's right, that's right, that's right, that's right. And then follow it with a question that's easy for the other person to be able to respond to. Now it's almost impossible for them to not reply. Because show up in every area of your life, you probably should use OFQs about 100 to 150 times a day.
How many do you think you use a day?
At least that.
At least that.
Yeah, at least that. And like even this morning, right, is I caught a couple of friends here for dinner last night, see them again this morning. What is the opening fact in the question? It's like, hey Sven, dinner was fun last night, really enjoyed the Sunday at the end, glad that we all got to be able to get together. Fact, 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 fact. Yeah, that's right, that's right, that's right, that's right. Where are you going for dinner tonight? No plans?
That's not that easy of a question, potentially.
Well, it is, because the expectation in that scenario is either I have plans or I have no plans. Either way is a potential good thing, because now there's either plans to be included or excluded from, or there is no plan. Therefore, is there the possibility that we create a plan? It's just putting the ball in play. And that's what we should do to be able to reconnect with our clients. Put a ball in play so that we can have a more meaningful conversation.
So I have a thought and a question I wanted to kind of explore with you.
Okay.
If that's okay. One of the things that came in my journey, and when I talk about being genuine or authenticity, was I felt a lack of meaning, really a lack of purpose. And I was thinking about what does that really mean, right? What
does it mean that there's a lack of meaning? That's pretty meta.
So I was thinking about purpose, right? And thinking, all these people talk about once you get money and status, all these things you want, and you lack purpose. So I thought about, well, what is purpose, right? Is a use. And so if we think about words, a word has a meaning, and that gives it a use.
Sure.
Right. And so I thought, well, having purpose or meaning just means that we're useful. And I've found that having a specific area where I feel very useful to others has given me lots of meaning and purpose. To you, where do you get meaning or purpose? And what do you think about meaning and purpose?
They're big questions. I'm not dissimilar to you in the greatest compliment anybody can give me is that was really helpful, that was really useful, thank you. So I think my purpose on life is to be useful. I can align massively towards that. I also think this is a fluid thing. when people are like, I just need to find my life's purpose.
Yeah.
I'm like, good luck with that. Good luck. Right? Yeah, I mean, it's very self-centered to believe that we are here for this one divine purpose that somebody else has created for us and we need to discover that. I'm not buying that.
Yep.
I believe that we have to find purpose, and that is a self-created journey. And you could find purpose in being useful in helping the dudes carry their equipment bags back to their car. Like, what is your purpose? Is making sure that the boy doesn't break his back carrying all the bags back to his car. Like, that's a purpose. What is the meaning in that? The meaning could be that it's developing friendship, it's creating some form of rapport, it's showing that you are humble enough to be part of the overall objective, that you're not bigger than the task. I think that we can take purpose and meaning and we can lower the bar significantly and we can live a way better life. We're just trying to find this divine purpose and this divine meaning for everything that's going on. I wish people would stop it. I think it's exhausting.
It is exhausting.
It's an impossible quest. And what you're doing is you're abdicating your purpose and your meaning to somebody or something else. It is it's irresponsible.
That's good. What's that?
Being that you're an empathetic person and a person who seems to really like to help people, I feel that I'm similar, and talking to a lot of people on the podcast, off the podcast, I found a lot of people that are passionate about helping people have overcome great struggles in their lives.
Okay.
What's the greatest struggle that you've overcome in your life?
I mean, we're forever overcoming struggles, right? I've had relationships that have gone south that have been catastrophic. I've had businesses that have gone south that have been catastrophic. I've had my health issues. I've had issues with I lost a child that was stillborn. I've had allegations and claims and challenging situations that you find yourself put in that challenges to be able to overcome. I think the best reality that comes from most people that you've learned have carried any distance in their life is they haven't had one. And they've had hundreds of punches in the face and knees in the groin and whips to the ankles, etc. And that you learn to accept that big obstacles and challenges are normal. And what I've learned to be true with the number of people I've got to meet is I don't know anybody who hasn't got it was really hard story. And creating a container for it to be okay for you to have it was really hard story, and that we all have our really hard stories. And it is probably what I'd like to see more of in the world, is that it's okay to have had a struggle without even having to say that one struggle was your defining moment. I think we're looking for our lives to be a Hallmark movie sometimes, where it was like there was this one bad thing that happened and then that became this pivotal moment and then I turned my life around and then everything was awesome. Well, I don't see that play out so well. And same when we were looking for this utopian divine purpose, it is, we're all cuts and bruises and bolted together different versions of how we then look to be able to make good from that. The ability to be able to overcome adversity, the ability to be able to accept winning and know that you might not always be winning, is all back to the point I made earlier. How you talk to yourself. And how can you find yourself being at peace with things that you didn't do well or that didn't go as well as you would have liked? And how do you find a way of being able to accept that you cannot right every wrong and you cannot be right all the time, and that you need to be okay being not okay, and that not everything needs an answer. Some things you just need to move on from. So I don't have a big failure moment that was like it was an epiphany for me. We got cuts and bruises and knees and slaps everywhere, and I've been in business since I was 14 years of age. I've lived in 20 to 25 different homes. It would take me a while to even be able to recall and remember and count and piece that all together. What I've learned to know that I'm very good at is being agile and being okay not being okay, in whatever that might look like. That answer your question?
Yeah, it was very thorough. Well, Phil, I really want to thank you because you have taught me so much, and I always appreciate the time that we have together.
Thank you.
I have not only learned a lot from you that I've used in my businesses that has helped me have more success in my businesses and make more money, and then just do a better job for my clients and be able to be more effective at helping people. I feel like I'm more thoughtful, better at home, and you have been such a great teacher and influencer for me. So
Thank you.
I really appreciate it, and I mean that from the heart. What would you, for anyone that's listening, like what would be a piece of advice or an actionable item or just some last final piece of value that you'd like to share, or a thought? It could be anything, really.
I'm going to echo a thought that I made earlier on, which is that the worst time to think about the thing you're going to say is in the moment that you're saying it. Like, decide right now what are maybe 3 of the most important conversations that could impact your life, right? 1 in your personal life, 1 in how you show up as a leader, 1 that could add success to your life, whatever your definition of success would be. And then ask yourself, like, how prepared are you for that either high stakes or recurring conversation in your personal life? How prepared are you for that either recurring or high stakes conversation in your leadership life? And how prepared are you for that recurring or high stakes conversation that's showing up that could add success to your life? And we should all be able to find there are at least 3 conversations that matter a lot in our world that we are less than prepared for. And without learning any new skills, simply adding a heightened level of intentionality to how you think and put thoughtful thought about how you show up for that moment ahead of time, you're already going to do better at it. So if people could just do better at those conversations in their world by adding intentionality to them first, the world will be better for it. So try that.
Phil M. Jones, his book, Exactly What to Say. Check it out. And then, Phil, what else do you offer other than the Exactly What to Say book? You've got a game.
I mean, we got so much. I mean, I think my ask, if people have enjoyed this conversation, want to continue the conversation, is come tell us what you liked about it. Tell us what you're going to implement. The way to continue the conversation is probably on my Instagram at Phil M. Jones UK, or you can certainly look around at some of the other insights, information that we share. We have everything from like free content in videos and webinars and blog articles right through to detailed level of consultation. And that's philmjones.com or exactlywhattosay.com. We have plenty of resources there too.
Awesome. Thanks for being with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.